I know you're probably working a job that you loathe for people that you can't stand simply because the idea of updating your portfolio is more painful. I've been there. Until I realized that the entire process can be made easier with a change of perspective. The task of distilling the entirety of a design project into a few words and images is daunting because that's not what you do. As a product designer, you spend your days solving problems for people. So this is why you should do exactly that. This is why you should think of your portfolio as a product. This change of perspective will make portfolio work less daunting by breaking it down into manageable steps. I do this by running my portfolio through the same process that I use in my day-to-day work as a product designer. The very first step of this is to do some discovery work on what the problem is. Take a step back and think about why you're doing this and who you're doing it for. It's natural to want to jump straight into Figma to start designing immediately, but think about how much you fight against that as a product designer. We are constantly pushing for research and discovery to be done before solutions start getting thrown about, so why aren't you doing that for the one project that directly affects how much Skrilla you make? Take your portfolio through all of the steps that you would at the start of any new project. Ask yourself some W's first. Who, why, when, and where. First of all, who are you solving this problem for and what are their needs? Put yourself in the shoes of somebody looking to hire a designer. Think about how monumental a challenge that actually is. Think of why it's so difficult and think about how you can make their job easier for them. Your users are likely recruiters, hiring managers, and other designers seeking a designer to solve their problems or work alongside them. They're extremely busy people who are undergoing their own nightmare of trying to find the right candidate for the job. Next up, think about what the problem is that you're solving and why it's a problem. It's important to define what the problem is because it helps you understand how you will solve the problem. Potential clients and employers need to know what you can do. They can't assess your capabilities based solely on your CV. And lastly, showing the entirety of your magnificence with just images and words. When and where? What is the context of the audience reading your portfolio? Most viewers will first read your portfolio without you there to provide context, often comparing it with other candidates. Anyone hiring for a position will likely be reading your portfolio amidst a stack of other candidates with a day that looks like this. So keep it to the headlines and only show your best work. During the interview, you'll get a chance to present your portfolio and provide all the extra context you want. As part of the discovery process, I also recommend conducting some competitor research at this stage to acquaint yourself with the current landscape of portfolio design. Search for product design portfolios and build up a mood board. Identify what you think works and what doesn't. Make a note of what grabs you and why. Make a note on what you can do to stand out. If everyone is doing this, what can you do better? How can you make it easier for your users? Remember, good design is copy, great design is steal. Now that you've explored for whom you're doing this and why, it's easier to decide how you're going to solve their problems. Looking at the assumptions we've made, we can decide how to solve the problem. What can you do to solve this problem? You can curate your best work. Quality over quantity is crucial. Select the projects that best show your design process, your skills, creativity, and range. And keep it current. You're only as good as your last project. Select the content for the job you want. If you don't want to do logo design, don't include logo design in your portfolio. Feel free to include details about your other work in your About Me section, but don't muddy the waters of your portfolio. You're targeting a specific user who is looking for a specific type of person. Show what your role in the project was. Don't use we. Your users are looking to hire you, not your team. Secondly, don't use passive voice. Tell the audience that I did this, not this was done. Be specific in exactly what your efforts were and how you contributed to the project. Usability over aesthetics. It's tempting to try and flex all over the place with fancy graphics, animations, and avant-garde layouts to impress other designers. But if your portfolio is hard to navigate or difficult to read, it's getting skipped. Don't be afraid of showing your personality. Write like you talk. Don't try to sound like a designer or use as many industry buzzwords as possible. Now for the most important part of this video. Go back to your user and put yourself in their shoes. You know that they are likely designers themselves. So how would you evaluate the skills of another designer? How would you decide if you wanted to work with them? How would you know that you could assign them to lead a project and not worry? You could look at their Dribble account and see lots of shiny, trendy and impressive visuals, but that doesn't tell you much about them or how they work. What the users of your portfolio want to see is the journey. Seeing only the visuals of a final product is a lot like reading the last page of a book. Your users want to see the full story. They want to see how you got there. The visuals of your product are important to show your skills as a visual designer, but they are perhaps the least important part of your portfolio. The most important part is showing what the problem you were trying to solve is and how you solved it. Each project in your portfolio should be bookended by this question and answer. In between that, I want to see everything you did to get to the solution. Show the research, workshops, sketches, wireframes, diagrams, early designs, and then at the very end, the final visuals. Your users want to see that you're doing exactly the kind of thinking we've just done: the who, the why, the when, and the what. You'll also notice that it's really hard to talk about just the visuals for half an hour. There's just not enough to talk about. So talk about the story of how each piece of the UI came to be, what decisions were made to get there, and why you made those decisions. Were they based on data, research, or something else? Did the business or the users demand that this component exist? There's a story behind every screen and a story behind every part of that screen. Every button, color, icon, image was put there for a reason. So talk about the story of how each piece of the UI came to be. What decisions were made to get there and why you made those decisions. Were they based on data, research, or something else? Did you put them there because you learned that this is what your users wanted, or was it a requirement of the business? Who did you work with to make these decisions? This is what your users want to see. They want to know what decisions were made and why you made them, because this is the best way to get to know you as a designer. You should also include the failures and the setbacks. Just like any other story, it would be boring as hell without a bit of tension. Your users don't want to hear about the amazing project where everything went smoothly, because it doesn't tell them much and most projects don't go smoothly. They want to hear about the project where everything went wrong, so that they can see how you handled it. They want to know what you did when you were told there was no time for user research, or when the priorities were changed halfway through. This is gold to your users because it shows them how you react under pressure and succeed against the odds. No one will blame you for the failures of a project because we all experience them all the time, and it's never the designer's fault. The next step I recommend is to gather everything related to the project into a folder. It might seem pretty obvious, but this can actually be a big barrier to getting started. This little bit of organization will make you feel less stressed, and along the way you'll get ideas for what you'd like to show and how you can do that. Remember, organization is the antidote to stress. By the way, this is a lot easier if you start a record of your work at the beginning of every project. This is the easiest way to make updating your portfolio less stressful. Start this folder next time you start a project, and you'll be so glad you have this. A great way to start looking at your next case study is to plot it out visually before you start writing. Start with the problem and solution, then use a 3-act structure: introduction, development, and conclusion. You can do this visually like so. Plot out the headlines for each section and add the main points you want to get across and the visuals you want to include. Don't forget to include captions for any images. I so often see visuals in portfolios with no explanation of what it is or why it's important. This wireframe version of your portfolio piece also allows you to easily explore layout options and the general flow of your case study, just like you would in any product design project. As you start writing out your main points, I recommend rehearsing it out loud to make sure it flows well and sounds like you. It's easy to write too formally and end up sounding weird when you try to say it out loud. You'll feel like a bit of a buck talking to your screen, but you'll get used to it. This is a good place to practice your storytelling. Does this feel like a cohesive story with a satisfying ending? Now, back to a point I made earlier. When you're writing your project, write like yourself. Here's an example. I engaged in cross-functional collaboration with data analysts to systematically gather and analyze data on customer pain points and the primary drivers for contacting customer support. This data-driven approach was instrumental in informing the strategic focus of our design sprint. The insights obtained were pivotal in defining the target user personas and the customer journeys for which we would develop high-fidelity prototypes and conduct rigorous usability testing. Versus, I worked closely with data analysts to gather data on the pain points our customers were facing and the most common reasons for contacting customer support. This helped later on when it came time to decide on the target for the design sprint and to choose which journeys we would prototype and test. Try to avoid sounding like an AI trained only on design buzzwords and more like you. This will help your users to get a better understanding of your personality and how you think, but it's also a chance to show your skills in communication. The first example here sounds kind of impressive, but you really have to work to understand what it's actually saying. The second example is easily digestible. Once you're happy with the wireframes, do the high fidelity design. Now is the time to flex your visual skills, but remember to keep it accessible. Remember to caption all images you include. What is this? Who did it? What part did you play in making this? Now it's time to test your product. You're going to be presenting this in interviews, so practice reading your script out loud. You will feel like an idiot talking to your screen, but it is so helpful and massively reduces the stress when you have to do it for real. Time yourself doing it as well so that you know you're not going over. Get feedback from other designers and present it to them if you can. Tell them exactly what feedback you're looking for. If you don't, you will most likely get, "Yeah, looks good, mate." Say, "I want feedback on this. I do not want feedback on that." One of the best ways to level up in design is to get a mentor. You can procure a mentor through relentless nagging. Find someone that is doing what you want to be doing. If they're a good person, they won't mind giving you some feedback. And if they're willing, enter into a more formal mentorship where you meet regularly. This is one of the biggest leg ups you can get in design. And while you're doing this, remove your ego from your product. New designers can attach their work to themselves, and when it is critiqued, it feels like they're attacking you because that work is part of your identity. Don't do this. Think of it as a product, and they are helping you to create the best possible version of it. Refine your portfolio pieces based on feedback and actual presentations and interviews. Make notes of what went well, what seemed to resonate, what you got questions on, and if you struggle to answer them. And just some last general tips. As I said before, the antidote to stress is organization. If you find making or updating your portfolio overwhelming, break it into manageable chunks. Time box it to an hour a night, or say you'll just work on one section and be done for the night. Next, you only need 2 projects in your portfolio. In most interviews, you'll get an hour to present your work, so you should spend 25 minutes talking about each and leave 10 minutes for questions. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if there's any other design topics you want me to cover in the comments.